My name is Matt Abbott. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at SalesPad. We're extremely passionate about helping distributors reach their full potential. And in fact, we supercharge the order-to-cash cycle. Today, we're going to spend a little bit of time sharing diagnostic tools that we have built to help distributors improve their order-to-cash cycles. But first, a little bit of background on SalesPad. We were founded 17 years ago in 2003, and even during this very difficult year, we've grown significantly, now with over 125 employees in 2 offices in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Raleigh, North Carolina. Over our 17-year history, we have served over 1,000 customers, and through those customers, over 15,000 users. Perhaps the most striking metrics regarding our success have to do with our tremendously high retention rates, as well as NPS score of 93, which far exceeds iconic brands such as Apple, Starbucks, Amazon, lofty territory certainly. If you take a step back and look at the surround of this slide, you see the breadth and depth of industries that we serve. Certainly we focus on distribution and light manufacturing, but what is pretty striking here is the array of customers, some which are quite industrial in nature, some which are quite retail oriented and heavily e-commerce centric. In today's discussion, we'll focus on 3 key topics. The first is taking a step back and talking about achieving profitable growth in distribution. The second is to share our order-to-cash diagnostic framework that covers the order-to-cash cycle from sell and order all the way through invoice and collect. And finally, we'll highlight the diagnostic tools that we've created for use by distributors like you. Based on our 17 years of experience helping distribution businesses optimize their companies, we've recognized that the order-to-cash cycle is the heartbeat of distribution operations. Every day, hundreds, if not thousands of orders are flowing through distribution businesses. Having a tight handle on the order-to-cash cycle is critical, from sell and order, warehouse and fulfill, replenish, ship and deliver, to invoice and collect. Not only is it important to have tactical control of those processes, but also having a full view of the data to provide tight integration to the back office while also generating the insight necessary to make strategic decisions about where to grow, how to improve profitability, perhaps which customers or product lines actually are destroying profitability and may be cut from the portfolio. But we recognize that it's not that easy. Distributors face a tremendous breadth of inhibitors when they think about profitable growth. First of all, from a strategy standpoint, distributors often face tight competition with razor-thin margins, and making decisions about what markets to enter or exit are extremely difficult. Quite often, as distributors look to grow, they add customers, they add product lines, and it's very hard to realize that growth is being choked by complexity before it's too late. From an operational standpoint, when you look at the order-to-cash cycle, expectations now are of real-time everything. In order to meet those expectations, distributors really do need to have real-time understanding of inventory, which gets very, very tough when you look across multiple locations with multiple warehouse layouts. And of course, as the complexity creeps in, sometimes distributors end up adding manual workarounds because their systems just can't adapt quickly enough, particularly if they're leveraging ERP-based back office systems, which, as we know, are wonderful at what they do, providing that tight financial system of record, however, don't often scale quick enough or cheaply enough to meet the order-to-cash requirements of a distribution business. As we thought about how we could best help distributors identify the key opportunities for improving their business, we took a step back and leveraged the 17 years of experience that we have in distribution to create a simple 1-page framework covering the order-to-cash cycle. Again, starting in the upper left here with sell and order, managing customers. You can't sell to anyone if you don't have any customers. Down through key processes such as configuring products, generating quotes, etc. All the way through the end of the cycle, the right side of this slide, invoice and collect, collecting the cash on the products or services that have been sold. Importantly, by putting all of these key processes on one page, we're able to help executives elevate out of the day-to-day grind of distribution. As you know, fire drills occur every day. There's always a customer with a question. Quite frequently, there's a product that could be late, or inconsistencies in the warehouse. And it's really hard for executives to take a step back and just look at one clean page to understand where are the key opportunities to unlock value in their business. So we've taken this order to cash cycle and used it in a few ways. Here on this slide, I'm depicting one of the conversational tools that we've used with executives to walk through their order to cash cycle. Very simply, talking about each step in the order to cash process, understanding how they feel they're performing, their company is performing, and identifying key gaps, bottlenecks in their businesses, and then prioritizing. We recognize that on a daily basis, it's often quite difficult for them to elevate out of the daily fire drills. How often are customers picking up the phone asking your team questions? How often are there issues in the warehouse? How often are you dealing with stockouts? With hundreds, if not thousands, of orders flowing through a distribution business on a daily basis, there's often a fire drill to be managed. And therefore, it's very difficult to take that important step back, look in the mirror with a fresh set of eyes. And so we've used this tool to have a 45-minute to hour-long conversation with executives about their business, asking pointed questions about how they perform in certain activities, such as managing customers. Through that conversation, we often highlight key areas of improvement while also celebrating strengths in the business, but importantly, identifying those bottlenecks, those challenges that are holding companies back from reaching the next level of performance. So it's that healthy look in the mirror, leveraging a best practices framework that allows executives to take not too much time, just a couple hours in total, to really identify what their continuous improvement roadmap should be consisting of. And finally, by identifying the key process and functional improvements required in a business, it really helps executives zero in on their technology requirements. How often have you gone into a demo and frankly not really known if the demo could in fact address the key needs that you're trying to address in your business? By ensuring that executives have really zeroed in on the highest priority improvements that they're striving to achieve in their business, this really does allow them to make much better decisions about technology enhancements that they are considering. As we developed the order to cash cycle, we thought that it would be extremely helpful to give distribution executives a deep understanding of best practices associated with each and every one of these order to cash cycle steps so that they could have and develop a fair assessment of how well their companies are performing relative to best practice. So let's take a look at the first process step, managing customers. How does it feel to be a distribution business? Well, if you think that you have a strength in managing customers, it should feel like managing customers is seamless. Customer and prospect lists should be well organized, easy to access. Customer data and history should be readily accessible, and all of the automation downstream should flow directly from your customer data. At the other end of the spectrum, distributors who have a significant gap in their ability to manage customers probably worry that sales are being lost, customers are unhappy, and they're probably feeling customer churn. Processes are probably inconsistent, siloed, redundant data entry, time's wasted, it's a poor user experience for customer service reps, and as I alluded to earlier, probably missing out on revenue on a daily basis. Here's another example of the best practices library that we've built, here focused on generating quotes. What does it feel like for distributors who are experiencing significant gaps relative to best practice in the area of generating quotes? Well, unfortunately, they probably are experiencing deteriorating gross margin as well as losing revenue. Most quotes could be paper-based, one-offs, and historical quotes, perhaps even generated by folks who are no longer with the business, are lost. And therefore, when customers ask to pick up a process in flight, you got to start over. Again, customers are unhappy here and revenue is lost. One more example of the best practices library we've created, here focusing on splitting orders. What does it feel like for distributors who are experiencing a significant gap in the order splitting process? Well, time's often wasted. The processes just don't meet the needs of a modern distributor. The order splitting process is often quite manual. It's error prone. Customers are frustrated, the invoice logic is not dynamic, and there tends to be quite a bit of effort consumed by splitting orders. Before we share some of the complementary tools that we've built as part of the order-to-cash diagnostic, we also wanted to put a finer point on identifying improvement opportunities, those key gaps that are bottlenecks in your business. Well, one of the things that we've done is, in addition to talking about the friction that distributors often feel on a day-to-day basis, we've started to quantify the value at stake for those businesses. So here, this is an example that we've used with an executive, again, in the Chicagoland area, to identify how much opportunity there is to redeploy labor, unlock investment in his business to fuel his order-to-cash cycle and fuel growth in the future. Quite often, improvement opportunities sound well and good, but they won't actually get sort of momentum behind them unless there is significant financial upside for changing the process, perhaps through technology. In this example, we identified over $4 million of labor invested in the order-to-cash cycle on an annual run rate basis for this business. Through the dialogue regarding this distributor's friction and pain points, we identified at least 25% of efficiency gain possible in this business, translating to over $1 million of wasted effort in today's world, or potentially a $1 million opportunity to reinvest in his business going forward. It was this identification and quantification of benefit which really turned the tides in terms of an investment in technology and a clarification and commitment to that continuous improvement roadmap heading into the following year. We hope that you've realized that taking a fresh look in the mirror, leveraging distribution-specific order-to-cash best practices, is a valuable exercise as you develop your continuous improvement roadmap. We'd like to highlight the tools that we've developed, starting with the order-to-cash diagnostic that we've talked about already. Behind that is a library of best practices that we have consolidated into one order-to-cash diagnostic best practices guide. In addition, we've developed an online diagnostic survey that allows you and your colleagues to quickly rate yourself relative to best practices. Now let's zero in on the order-to-cash best practices guide, which is a culmination of 17 years of experience helping distribution businesses reach their full potential. As you see in the 25 pages of documentation describing the full order-to-cash cycle from sell and order all the way through invoice and collect, we have summarized best practices, moderate gaps, and significant gaps relative to best practice for every single step in the order-to-cash cycle, so you and your colleagues can evaluate your company's performance on an equal basis, taking emotion out of it relative to best practice so that you're all on the same page relative to your business's performance. We often find that this guide is a helpful lead-up to a working session. Executives can take an hour in their day to read through the best practices and recognize the art of the possible as it pertains to distribution order to cash. This guide is often helpful as well for executives who are recently promoted and perhaps taking on new responsibilities in their business and want to quickly learn how they should be leading and what they should be striving for in these new functions they've taken responsibility for. We recognize there are times when executives want to take a quick assessment of their order-to-cash cycle. For that use case, we've built an order-to-cash diagnostic survey, easily reachable at order-to-cashdiagnostic.com. In less than 15 minutes, executives can take an assessment of their full end-to-end order-to-cash cycle, leveraging that same order-to-cash cycle and best practices framework that we reviewed, but in a quick and easy online format. In addition, the dynamic nature of the online survey allows subject matter experts like accounts receivable reps, for example, to really focus on the area of the order-to-cash cycle that they are responsible for or have deep expertise in. In those examples, those subject matter experts can evaluate their area of expertise in 3 minutes or less. As we wrap up, we hope that you're excited about conducting your own diagnostic of your business's order-to-cash cycle, from sell and order all the way through invoice and collect. By leveraging the best practices framework and the tools that we've shared today, you and your colleagues can quickly and easily identify the bottlenecks in your business and quantify the value that is tied up in your operations today. By consolidating and prioritizing these opportunities, you and your colleagues will be fully aligned around the continuous improvement roadmap that you all will follow together to unlock profitable growth in your business. Thank you.